How's it going, guys? Mr. Edwards here, Centreville High School Automotive Technology. We're going to be doing a video today for you guys on a used car checkout. So most of you guys that have been with me for a couple years now have done work on our student auto sales cars. You know that we go through a checkout on them to figure out work we need to do to perform to the vehicles. This video is going to help you guys kind of do this on your own, know the stuff to look for. If you get a car that you're thinking about fixing up, it'll help you figure out if it's a car that's even worth buying for yourselves, and if it is something that you buy, the work you need to do to it to have it be safe and legal. Okay, so this particular car is a 1996 Toyota Camry. It's got about 150,000 miles on it. Going to show you guys some more particulars about it in a minute, but just wanted to talk about it first. It does need some work done to it. We're going to figure out everything that it does need so that we can go ahead and perform that work and have this vehicle be safe to go down the road. The first thing you want to do when you're doing a used car checkout, start on the exterior. Start with the easy stuff. You're just going to do a basic walk around of the car, see if there's anything obvious that stands out to you. One other thing to keep in mind is that if you're looking at a vehicle to potentially buy for yourself, or you have a vehicle and you want to fix it up, is you want it to be able to be legal to drive on the road in most instances. In Virginia, it has to be able to pass Virginia State Safety Inspection to be legal, and anywhere in the Northern Virginia area, in Fairfax, Arlington, Loudoun, Prince William, and Stafford counties, has to be able to pass emissions inspection as well. So we want to get it to the point, since we're up here in Fairfax County, that we can pass state safety and emissions inspection. So that's going to be some of the major stuff we look for as part of this used car checkout. The other thing that I would recommend that you guys do, if you're going to be taking a used car, fixing stuff on it, and then selling it at some point, keep a folder of documentation on the vehicle. Just like we do at school with our student auto sales cars, with the folders we have for them. With this car, I'm going to be keeping a folder that has all the receipts of everything that I do to it, so that I can keep track of how much money I spend on this car. If I go to sell it down the road, I won't be upside down on it, hopefully. So starting on the outside of the car, we're just going to walk around it, take a look at it, see if there's anything that really stands out to us. The body of this car is actually in really good condition, paint too. For being a car that's 24 years old, the paint, sure, I mean, it's a little bit faded, but none of it's peeling off. There's no rust or anything really. Take a look at all the glass on the car. Obviously you don't want to have any broken windows or anything like that. The glass is in good shape. Take a look at your windshield, make sure that's not cracked. Walking around the car, you'll see little chips and stuff like that. That's nothing that makes the car not worth having, especially if you're looking at a car that, like I said, is already 24 years old. Other thing that we're going to take a look at as we're walking around is the wheels. You want to make sure that all four wheels match. If you have three wheels that are these nice aluminum, finished wheels, and then you've got one that's a black, just steel wheel, that's not good, because A, it doesn't look good, and B, it says something might have happened to that aluminum wheel at one point in time that caused them to have to replace it, and they replaced it with something that was cheaper. They could have hit something, damaged the wheel, maybe it damaged more than the wheel, and you're going to find that out. This one's got all four matching wheels. We'll look at the tires and more in-depth stuff with that once we get it up in the air. Next thing that we're going to look at is just walk around and look at all the lenses, look at all the lights. We're going to check the lights to make sure they work in just a minute, but first just make sure A, they're all there and that they're in good shape. The headlights and the turn signal assemblies look in really good shape. I mean, they are plastic, so they're not so old that they're glass, but plastic headlights a lot of times fade by the time they get to be this old, so these ones might have been replaced, but either way they're in good shape. No major cracks in them or anything like that. Any lenses on a car for the lights have to be solid. You can't have any holes in them, you can't have any cracks in them that allow off-color light to get out. Virginia State inspection, you will fail if you have a brake light that's supposed to be red and it has a crack that's letting white light through it. It's got to be solid lenses. The other thing, if they crack, they can let water inside of them. Any lenses that have moisture inside of them will fail Virginia State inspection. These all look in really good shape though. And like I said, we'll check them for functionality in just a minute. So everything on the outside of the car looks in pretty good shape. Getting to the interior, you just want to take a look, make sure it's not all torn up, because replacing interior components is a lot of times not cheap. The interior on this car is actually in very good shape. Sure, it's dirty. You're going to have to vacuum it. You're going to have to clean it. We do that to almost any car that we have, because cars get dirty. You know, we get in them with our dirty shoes and everything, but you're looking for anything that's significantly damaged, torn, ripped, missing. And this car overall is in really good shape on the interior. Another thing to look at that a lot of people miss until they go to sit down in the car, at least, is the headliner. Take a look at the headliner, because on cars especially that are 15, 20 years old, this fabric starts to sag on it. And this one's sagging a little bit, you can see, but it's not hanging down. It's not beating us in the head as we're driving down the road, so I'm not worried about it. Headliners, to get it replaced, there are shops that specialize in doing that, and it can cost you anywhere from $300 to $500 just for a new headliner. So the interior looks pretty good. There's a couple little things, like that vent is kind of cracked out there. There's a couple interior pieces that are broken, but nothing major. Some of the trim is starting to crack a little bit, but nothing that's going to prevent this vehicle from certainly being serviceable and going down the road. Getting in the car now, we're going to make sure that all the interior components work. So we're going to start the car up. And it sounds pretty good. We'll pop the hood in a minute just to listen to it a little bit closer. One thing stands out there that you might see. Obviously our radio works. We'll turn that down. See if the air conditioning works. We should be able to hear it kick on if it works. We should be able to hear the compressor kick on, and obviously we'll be able to feel cold air in here. So we'll turn it on, make sure that AC button's pushed and it's all the way over on cold. Let's see. I'm going to turn the AC on and off, see if y'all can hear it. See how the idle changed a little bit, the RPM changed. Our air conditioning is kicking on and it's blowing nice and cold. We'll turn the air conditioning off, switch over to heat, and now the engine's not warmed up, so we're not going to get heat, but we'll see if we get any temperature change at all. Make sure everything's working as it should. And it definitely warmed up some. Obviously, with the engine warmed up, it would blow a lot warmer. Make sure that our vents blow in the different positions that they should. So right now it's blowing right in our face on the dash. We can switch it over to dash and floor. And it's still blowing up here some. And it's blowing down at the floor. We'll switch it to just floor, make sure it doesn't blow up here on the dash anymore. And that it's blowing just down at the floor, which it is. Now, this next one is pretty critical. Because if it doesn't blow, these two symbols right here are for the defroster. This one's just the defroster, which is the windshield and over on the side windows, and this one's for the defroster and the floor. If the defroster does not function, it will not pass Virginia State safety inspection. Reason for that being, if you have ice built up on your windshield and you go and turn on your defroster and it doesn't work, that could potentially be a safety risk. So let's put it on defrost. We'll put it on defrost and floor first. Be able to feel up here at our vents. Yep, and it's blowing up there, and we'll switch it to just defrost. And it's blowing, that's good. Turn our HVAC system off. We obviously saw that the radio already worked. Now we're going to check the interior components of our power locks and power windows. Now, the first thing that we're going to check is our driver's power window here, and that one's critically important because if it doesn't function, you will not pass Virginia State safety inspection. Our driver's power window has to be able to go down at least so that we could do hand signals out the window if our turn signals decided to stop working someday, and tell other drivers what we intend on doing, what direction we're going. It doesn't have to come back up to pass inspection, but it has to go down. If you have manual crank windows, same difference. But with this one with power windows, we need to make sure it at least goes down. And it does. And it comes back up. Over on the passenger side, same thing. Back one goes down and up. And back driver side, down and up. None of these other windows matter for inspection, but they do matter for the value of the vehicle. Power locks, let's make sure they work. All 4 doors work. We're also going to check and make sure our power mirrors work. That one works in all directions. And so does that one. Now, like I said, this car has about 150,000 miles on it, a little over 149,000 actually. On the dashboard here, we want to make sure that all of our gauges function. And if you guys are taking a look right here, you might see we found our first problem also. Our check engine light's on. Now, with that check engine light being on, our vehicle, and I'll zoom in on it here so you guys can see, our vehicle cannot pass Virginia State Emissions Inspection because it's a 1996, which means it's OBD2. Any vehicle that's 1996 to this year will not be able to pass Virginia State Emissions Inspection with a check engine light on, because it's saying that the computer of the car has found there's a problem with the emissions system. We need to figure out why that light's on and repair whatever the problem is. Our gauges work. You can see our temperature gauge has come up from where it was when it was cold up to the middle, which is right where we want it to be. Our vehicle's not overheating, but it's right at operating temperature. Our tachometer works. If I step on the gas pedal a little bit, our speedometer will work in a minute when we go to move the vehicle, you guys will be able to see. And our gas gauge works. We've got a little bit less than half a tank of gas. The next thing that we're going to check is all the exterior lights on the vehicle. These are critically important for Virginia State inspection because you need to be able to see where you're going, and other people need to be able to see where you're going too. To check the lights on the vehicle, it's helpful to have a second person that can stand outside the vehicle and tell you if all the lights are good while you operate them inside the vehicle, but you might not always have that. In this situation, you guys are my extra person. I'm going to get in the car, operate all the lights, and you'll be able to see that they work. When you're that person that's in the vehicle operating the lights for the person that's outside, it's helpful if you tell them which lights you're operating so they know where to look and tell you if it's working. First, I'm going to put on the low beam headlights. Now high beams, back to low beams. We'll do the left turn signal and the right turn signal. If the vehicle had fog lights, we'd also check those now as well. This one does not. One thing a lot of people forget to notice, but a Virginia State inspector will not forget, is your corner marker lights, both on the front and back. That's these orange lights that are over here next to the headlight. People will see the headlight works and that's all they think about. They don't think about their marker lights that mark the corners of the vehicle. Both of these are working. Now in the back of the car, we can see that our tail lights work, and then I'm going to set you guys up and you'll be able to see the brake lights and the reverse lights. First thing to check again, those corner marker lights. You can see on this side it works, our tail light works, this side our tail light works, and our corner marker light works. These should be on when the headlights are on. One other light that should be on in the back when the headlights are on that a lot of people forget to check as well is our tag lights for our license plate. If you look up under here, some cars have one bulb, some have two. This one has two, and they should both be working. If they're not, you will fail Virginia State inspection. So far everything looks good with our lights. We're about to find out if our brake lights and reverse lights work. First thing I'm going to do is the brake lights. One brake light that a lot of people forget about, and it should be working right now, is the one that's in the back window. That's our third brake light. It has to work. And next I'll do the reverse lights. So as you guys can see, all of our lights on this vehicle do work. Now, if you're doing this by yourself and you don't have an extra person outside the car like me, you can do it. It's just a little bit harder. The hardest one to do is the brake lights and the reverse lights. The best way to do those that I've found is get something to push on the brake pedal with, and then you can step out of the vehicle and walk back here and look and make sure all three of your brake lights work. For the reverse lights, you don't want to have the car running, but you want to have the key turned to the on position, put the car in reverse, and then you can walk back here and look. Obviously, you don't want to have the car running and back over yourself, But with the key in the on position and the engine not running, the reverse lights should function. One other thing I want to check is the suspension of the vehicle while it's sitting down here on the ground. I want to see what kind of shape the struts and springs are in, if they're worn out. As far as I know, looking at them, they don't look like they've ever been replaced on this vehicle, and being that it is nearly 25 years old, we want to make sure that they're still in serviceable condition. If I walk up to the vehicle, it shouldn't be real easy for me to put my hand on it and push it down. But this one, it's a little bouncy, and you can see the whole car continues to bounce if I get it going. So our rear struts are definitely in pretty worn shape on this car. And our front ones aren't that great either. Again, they're 25 years old, and they do make some pretty bad clunking and squeaking noises when the vehicle's driving and goes over bumps. We're down to a couple last things to check before we'll get the vehicle up in the air and check more critical stuff underneath the vehicle. One last thing is our wiper blades. We want to make sure that they function and that they're in good condition. That's something that you'll get caught on an inspection real easy. The rubber here being torn away from the blade itself. Wiper blades are not expensive, and all you guys know how to replace them. They're real easy, but it's something that you'll get caught on. These ones right here, the rubber's in good shape. It's not torn or anything. Let's just make sure that they function. Hop in the car here. And they work. Let's see one other thing. Let's see if our windshield washer works, where we spray washer fluid up on the windshield. I hear the pump working, but nothing's spraying. If I had to guess, we're probably out of washer fluid. That's one thing we're gonna have to do. Underneath the hood of the car, we have a V6 3.0 liter engine. It sounded pretty good when the car was running. Didn't sound like we had any abnormal noises or anything like that. So I'm not really worried about anything too major. We're just gonna do some visual inspection of stuff under the hood, check all of our fluids, anything. Jesus! Oh boy. Well, that's a good way to lose your head, folks. What just happened a second ago was the hood fell. The reason being for that, the hood struts are bad. The way this hood is held up is not by a prop rod, like some hoods. It's held up by hydraulic struts. If you look over here, I'll move you. There's one of them, and that one actually, if you can see, has some fluid dripping down it. They're fluid-filled struts, and if they start to leak, that happens. There's a couple ways that temporarily we can solve our problem with that. One of them is we can take like a crowbar, pry bar, something like this to hold the hood up. My personal favorite way is I'll take a pair of vice grip pliers and I'm going to clamp them onto one of the hood struts right over here, and it'll hold the hood up for us. Now it's not going to fall on my head. So as I was saying, underneath the hood, we're going to do some just basic visual inspection of stuff, check the belts, check anything that we can basically get our eyes on, check all the fluids. Belt looks in pretty good shape. This is our serpentine drive belt, drives all the components on the front end of the engine. We'll take a look at it. You might need to get a flashlight to be able to see down in there, but I can see there's no major cracks or anything in it. That's something that you really want to check because, again, if it's got cracks in it, it'll fail Virginia State inspection because it handles your power steering. We're going to check all of our fluid levels, make sure that they're all in good shape. One thing that I just laid my eyes on that I noticed, this right here is part of your upper engine mount. It holds this side of your engine into the car. The way the engine mounts work is that they're they have a rubber bushing inside of them that allow a certain amount of movement, but not too much. And this one right here, if you guys can see down inside of there, it's cracked in half. Let me get a flashlight for you. So now if you guys can see this rubber bushing up inside our upper engine mount here, that thing's cracked clean in half right above where the bolt goes through it. That's got to get replaced. We'll add that to our list. We're also going to be adding hood struts to our list if you hadn't already guessed that. One thing also that I notice, looks like we got a little bit of an oil leak. Right around the top of our engine where our valve cover sits. Again, V6, so there's one in the front, one in the back, obviously. The back one's a little harder to see because it's covered up by the intake manifold. But it does look like our valve cover gaskets are leaking a little bit. And that might be why I smell a little bit of burning oil, because it's dripping right down on the exhaust manifold. Not too big of a deal, but it is something that we might want to address. First fluid I'm going to check is my engine oil. So find your engine oil dipstick, wipe it off. You can see that that focuses right between low and high, and the fluid's light brown golden color. It's in pretty good shape. We're going to go ahead and change it anyway as part of the service we do to this vehicle, but it's in pretty good shape, and it certainly is not low. Next fluid that we're going to check is going to be our power steering fluid, which is over to one side here. The cap on it says power steering fluid. It should be a nice kind of light red color. And this one actually has a little dipstick on it. Some of them just have a reservoir with a high and low mark on it. We'll wipe that dipstick off. And it's filled right up to that full mark on the dipstick, and it's in pretty good shape. Washer fluid, remember, when we check it, if we can't see it, it's low, and this one's completely empty. So if I had to guess, there might be a hole in this washer fluid tank, or they just ran it completely dry. Next fluid that we'll check is our brake fluid, which is a pretty easy one. Right up here on top of the master cylinder, there's two lines on the brake fluid reservoir, max and a minimum, and the brake fluid is almost right up at the maximum line. Now the fluid doesn't look too clean, it looks kind of a darkish color, so that might be something we have to consider flushing out of there, but in terms of fluid level, it's in good shape. While we're under the hood here, we're also going to go ahead and check our engine air filter, because that's something that's pretty easy to pop out of there and be able to see what kind of shape it's in. If it's something that we need to go ahead and replace, pulled all the clips off of it, pop this housing up and out of the way. And our engine air filter is in pretty decent shape. There's not too much dirt caked in it or anything. Make sure you guys put it back in the same way it came out. You don't want to try to put it in upside down, because that's not going to work too well. We got our air filter put back in, put all the clips back on it, and one thing that did pop to my attention right over here, if you take a look at our battery, it looks in pretty good shape. There's not too much corrosion or anything built up on it, but it does have a sticker on it, the date that battery was made. That's 12/16, December of 2016. So this battery is almost 3.5 years old, and that's something that we might want to at least test and make sure that it still seems to be holding good voltage, because last thing you want to end up with is a dead battery. Alright, so the next step we want to check, we need to have the vehicle off the ground to be able to get the wheels off, check our brakes, check all of our suspension components, make sure everything seems good. Now, much like you guys, if you're doing this at your house, or if you're doing this at a used car lot or something like that, I don't have a lift to be able to put the vehicle on like we do at school and be able to get the vehicle really up in the air like in a professional shop. So we're going to have to use an alternative method, which all you guys should be able to do because we've done it at school as well. We're going to use a floor jack and jack stands. Now right now the car's sitting on my gravel driveway, which is not the best place to jack the car up or put it on jack stands, because gravel's not sturdy, gravel's not level, it's not the safest thing to be putting the weight of the vehicle on. So we're going to move over here to a better surface, which is the concrete floor on the inside of my garage, move the car in here, get it jacked up, and we'll be able to move on from there. Alright, so I've got our Toyota supported off the ground here on jack stands now inside the garage on a nice flat surface. All four wheels are off the ground. We can go ahead and check some other things on the vehicle. The first thing I want to check is all my steering and suspension components. So I'm going to come around to each wheel, get down to it. First of all, make sure it spins free. The front wheels, obviously, because this is a front wheel drive vehicle, when you spin one, the other one's going to spin. But make sure they spin free, nothing's tight, nothing's locked up. I'm going to grab them at 9 and 3 and make sure they don't have any excess movement, like you can feel just the wheel itself moving around, or you feel something that feels like it's loose. Grab the tire at 9 and 3, I'm not trying to turn the whole wheel. I'm just trying to give it a little wiggle. Make sure nothing feels loose. Again, it's 6 and 12. Same thing we do before we were doing an alignment on a car. Make sure that everything feels like it's tight. This one feels good. I don't feel anything that's clunking around. 6 and 12, we're checking for wheel bearings and ball joints that could be bad. 9 and 3, we're mainly checking for tie rod ends, inner and outer tie rod ends that could be bad. Everything feels good though. Go around and do the same thing on all the other wheels as well. So on my other front wheel, everything feels like it moves freely and nothing feels like it's loose either. And in the back, moves free and nothing loose. And one last wheel. Nothing's loose, moves free. Now, on that point of the back wheels spinning free, I want to see if my emergency brake works. So I'm going to go up inside the car, push the emergency brake pedal, and we'll see if the back wheels still spin free or not. With 3 clicks of the pedal down, I should not be able to move this. And if you look, it's locked up. Let's go over to the other side, make sure it's locked up also. And on the other side, it's not going anywhere. Our parking brake or emergency brake works. Next thing that I want to check is the tire tread condition and tread depth. So first of all, if you guys are just looking at this one tire, this is the driver's front tire, you can see it's got some chunks missing out of it. They're pretty badly cracked. If you guys can see, there's like dry rot cracks all around the sidewall, and the tread's not in that great a shape. But we're going to get an exact measurement just so we know what we're working with. So using a tread depth gauge, we're going to measure in 30/2 of an inch. Remember, when we're measuring tire tread, we're going to bring it over here, stick it down in one of the treads, and push it down to where it's flush. Come out here and get our measurement in 30/2 of an inch. And we're below the 4, but above the 3, just barely above the 3. We're between 3 and 4 30/2 of an inch in that tread. Let's take a couple more measurements. We'll spin it around. Get one in the middle. Again, 30/2 of an inch. We are right about 4 30/2. And one more. I'll come up top here, get on the inside. Again, right about 4 30/2 of an inch. So this tire, tread depth wise, is not in horrible condition. It's certainly getting close to being at the end of its life. Remember, tires that are 2 30/2 of an inch or less will not pass Virginia State inspection. This one being 3 to 4 30/2 of an inch will, but due to the fact that it's got a lot of uneven wear on it and chunks missing out of it and a lot of dry rot, it's pretty much at the end of its life. One other thing we want to check is our tire age. Remember, at the end of the DOT code, there's those 4 numbers, 0 to 11. That's the second week of 2011. This tire is 9 years old, because we're past the second week of 2020 now. This tire is 9 years old. The maximum safe age for tires is 6 years. So age and wear-wise, this tire really needs to be replaced. Let's check some of the other ones. On the passenger front, you can see again, we got a lot of really bad wear, dry rot, chunks missing. And this tire, again, second week of 2011, it's 9 years old. It needs to be replaced. As for the back tires, they aren't in quite as bad a shape, but again, they're almost to the point where they're worn out anyway. They don't have quite as much dry rot or anything like the front ones do, but they are to a point where they should be replaced as well. In terms of age, these ones are from 2013. So these tires are still 7 years old. They're beyond the safe age also. All right, next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the wheels off this thing. We're going to take a look at the brakes, see what kind of shape they're in. So now that I've got the wheels off the vehicle here, we're going to take a look at everything up inside of our wheel well here, including our brakes, our struts, our axles, anything that we can get our eyes on up inside of here to see if there's anything visually that we need to service up in here. Taking a look at the brakes themselves, I can see the brake rotors do have a good bit of rust on them. That's not surprising because the car has been sitting for a good bit of time. We are either probably going to have to replace or at least resurface these rotors. The other thing, if you get down up inside of here, you can see we have almost no brake pads left. And I could get a brake pad measurement gauge and we could see that those brake pads are just about toast. So just by visually looking at it and being able to see how thin it is, I'm going to start with the thinnest measurement that we have. And that doesn't even fit up inside of there, which means that this outer brake pad at least is less than, let's see if I can get that to focus on here, less than 2 millimeters. This brake pad will not pass Virginia State safety inspection. These brakes need to be replaced. Let's check our inside pad. Look through that little window there, and you guys should be able to again identify the pad. If I can point it out here, the pad material. Here's your rotor, this rusty looking piece. Pad material, and then the backing plate. So if I get up inside of here with my measurement tool, this brake pad, I mean, that right there is your pad material, and there is less than 2 millimeters on that inside pad as well. There's your backing plate, there's your pad material, there's your rotor, that rusty looking area. There's not much left. So our front brakes on this car, at least on this driver's side, are toast. Also up inside of here, I see a lot of grease that's all over the place. It's on the brake caliper, it's on the tie rod over here, and the cause of that is if you look up inside of here, our outer axle boot that drives from our transmission out to our wheel is torn. Up inside this rubber boot, there's what's called the CV joint, which is what can pivot in any direction and allows the motion of the axle to transmit into the wheel. Our axle boot is torn. The grease that's inside of it that lubricates it is now all over everything. That grease comes out, that joint can be damaged. So we're gonna have to either replace that boot or replace the entire axle. Most cases these days, it's cheaper to just replace the entire axle. CV axles are not that expensive. So that's something we definitely need to take note of. In terms of everything else in the wheel well here, the strut, remember we noticed earlier they were pretty soft and spongy, but there's no oil or anything leaking from it. It's just worn out, over 20 years old. One thing you guys might not catch initially, but is a good thing to keep your eyes peeled for. See how this strut is kind of has white mist sprayed onto it here? What color is this car? When they paint the car in the factory, they don't paint it once they put all this stuff together in here. So this car has, at least part of it has been painted, and I would guarantee you the front end up here near this strut's been painted, and they didn't do a good job of masking off the wheel well area, so there was overspray up inside of here. Vehicle history reports like Carfax can tell you a lot. I would bet that this vehicle has been in an accident at some point. This is telltale signs right here where the vehicle's been painted. But this strut's in pretty good shape. At least physically, in terms of its wear, I would say it's pretty well worn. We already checked for loose ball joints, tie rod ends, all that felt good. Control arm that goes to our ball joint here, the rubber bushing that's up inside of there looks in pretty good shape. It's not broken or anything. So everything else looks pretty good up inside here. I don't see any major fluid leaks or anything with the exception of that axle boot being torn. Let's take a look at the other wheels. Now over on the passenger side front, in this area, we can take a look and see that our front brakes are equally as toast, about 2 millimeters or less on the actual pad material. You guys saw me measuring on the other side. This side is no better. So we definitely need some front brakes, and we're going to have to resurface or replace these rotors. In terms of anything else on this side, I can take a look at my axle boots. And that one, the axle boot itself is actually not torn, even though it looks like it is. Actually, wait. Yeah, it is. Find something new every day. That one is split wide open. So we need 2 axles on this car, one on each side. That is terrific. Or at least the outer boots, because that is not good. And this one's been split open so long, all the grease is gone. What's left is dried up. So we absolutely need to take care of that. The other issue I see over here as I'm getting up inside of there, there is a lot of oil over here, like all over everything. And right there, see this belt? That's the power steering pump for the power steering system. And that's got fluid dripping off of it. So I think we've got a oil leak of some sort that we need to look further into for sure. All this stuff adds up, guys. That's why you got to do a thorough checkout of any car that you're considering buying or fixing up. So just on this side, we still need front brakes, obviously. You don't just do one wheel, so you got to do the full front brakes. We need another axle. And we've definitely got an oil leak of some sort. This strut, again, not leaking, so not oily or anything, but was pretty soft. I see that white overspray again. Like I was saying, something happened to the, yeah, look at this. Something happened to the front end of this car, and whoever painted it didn't take too good a care to cover up their work. Everything else up here, though, looks pretty good. I don't see any rust or anything. Control arm bushings are in good shape. They're not broken or anything. So this one looks all right. So back here in the back of the car now, I'm going to take a look. First thing that I noticed, this rear strut right here. Remember how soft and spongy these were? And this one's all oily. It's got oil leaking out of it. Very similar to those hood struts that nearly crushed my head a little while ago. This rear strut right here, it's leaking. It cannot properly support the weight of the vehicle. You can see as the camera focuses there, this rear strut definitely needs to be replaced, both because it's too soft and it's leaking. Other stuff that I noticed back here, again, the brake rotors are pretty rusty and kind of grooved, but again, the vehicle's been sitting for some time, so that doesn't surprise me. The brakes themselves are actually in pretty good shape. The pads, if you can see up inside of there, have plenty of material on them, so I'm not too worried about the rear brakes on here. I'm definitely worried about these rear struts. In the back on the passenger side, we can take a look at our brakes. Again, we've got a good bit of rust on the rotors, but that doesn't concern me too much because it has been sitting for a while. The brake pads actually look really good. They're in really good shape. If I got in here with a measuring tool, they'd probably be 6-7 millimeters. Rear brake pads look really good. The rear strut on this side, well, not so good. You can see it's all oily, and we saw how soft both sides were when we had it on the ground. It absolutely needs rear struts, no question. Anything else back here, I don't see anything too concerning. Wiggle some stuff. Oh, this sway bar link's loose. So this right here is what's called a sway bar link. It prevents the vehicle from rocking too much when you go around turns. It just stabilizes the vehicle basically. And these links right here have little ball and socket joints on each end of them, and they wear out over time. And this one up here, it's popping back and forth, so it needs sway bar links as well in the back. Everything else up under here looks relatively good though. I don't see anything too concerning, so that's the passenger rear. Alright guys, so we've done most of what we can really do in terms of checking stuff out for a used car that we had no idea what was going on with it really. We got the exterior looked at really good outside, checked all the lights, checked all the interior stuff as best we could, checked some stuff under the hood, certainly identified some things that need to get repaired on it, quite a few things actually. So now I'm going to put together a list, and I strongly recommend that you guys do this when you're doing any sort of check over of a car that you know you're going to find multiple things wrong with it. Because if you guys don't keep track of everything that you're finding, you will forget stuff. It's just human nature. We can't possibly remember everything. So put together a list of what you guys need to do and put it in that folder that we started with. Remember, I told you guys, keep track of any car that you're servicing, that you're fixing up. That way you know everything you need to do to it, you know everything you have done to it, you know how much money you put into it, and you come out on top. I'm going to put together a list and I'll show you guys what we got. All right, so like I recommended, put together a list off of everything that you've uncovered your vehicle will need to have repaired on it. So I put together a list of everything that we've uncovered in this video. We need front brakes, and we're gonna have to do something with the rotors, either replace them or resurface them. We can't just leave them the way they are. We need to replace those front struts that were soft, both front axles, remember those boots were torn. The check engine light's on, we're gonna diagnose that in another video. Hopefully that's nothing too major, but we'll find out. We definitely need to change the oil just because that's something quick and easy to do. Those rear struts, they're leaking oil and they're really soft, they gotta go. Rear sway bar links, remember the ball and socket joints are loose in those. They're making all kinds of noises. The hood struts, those are the things that hold the hood up when the hood tried to fall on me and hit my head earlier. 4 tires, because they're well aged out and pretty much worn out. And anytime you replace 4 tires, you should do an alignment. That way your nice new tires don't wear out unevenly and prematurely. So this is all stuff that we identified in this video. This is not a small list. I mean, and for a car that's 24 years old, you would have to ask yourself, is it really worth it? If you get a really good deal on the car, or it's already a car that you own and you just want to fix it up, may not be a bad idea to get this stuff taken care of. In the instance of this car, this is stuff that we are going to repair in future videos. It's going to kind of be our class project, if you will. Alright guys, well, you made it to the end of the video here. I'm taking that list of stuff we found out we need to do, putting it in this folder here with all my records on this car. I cannot stress it enough, guys. Anytime you guys are fixing up a car, keep records on it because it will only help you in the long run. So that list is in this folder here. I obviously have some parts to order. I've got a dog that wants to know what's going on. If you made it to the end of this video, you get to see our shop mascot, our shop dog. So that's what's going on with this car. We're going to have quite a few videos coming up, obviously, in the next couple of weeks of doing all the stuff we made a list of to it. Getting stuff taken care of so that this is a good Toyota Camry going down the road. The good news is, with only 150,000 miles, I mean, though that is a good number of miles, that's about half the life of this car. These Toyota Camrys go forever. So hopefully you guys got something out of this video and enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys will tune in for the next few videos. Make sure you fill out your sheet that goes with this video and send it in to me. We're making do with what we got here. So hopefully you guys are all doing okay. I look forward to talking to you guys soon.